Today, we're going to talk about OSCQR 538. So we have jumped another section of OSCQR. This section 5 is about interaction. So course interaction. It's a mildly exciting standard. Most of it is just making sure that you have everything in the right place. So we're going to look at the video. So this standard is about regular and substantive instructor to student expectations, and predictable scheduled interactions and feedback are present, appropriate for the course length and structure, and are easy to find. So we're really going to talk about, for the first time, we're going to talk about what regular and substantive means. And it is dictated by the federal law. And I know when you took EPDO, I had a lot of things about regular and substantive interaction and what that meant. So we're really making sure that we have this in the course to be compliant with the federal government and what they expect the course to have. So we're going to play this little video. I think it is about 3 minutes. Oh, almost 5.
Faculty need to let students know when assignments are due. We can't just leave it as an open-ended assignment that it looks like it's not due till the end of the semester. We need to be able to say, okay, you need to respond to this question by a certain amount of time, which gives the faculty member the opportunity to grade their work and get feedback straight to the student in a timely manner to let them know that, yes, you're doing great, or think about this in your next response. How can you improve on a response? If we provide the timeline for the students to get their work done, it gives the faculty member a timeline in which to get them proper feedback on how they're doing.
Well, immediate feedback is a learning principle. It's good to provide feedback within the same day or the day after a student submits things. That becomes a challenge for instructors if you have a lot of activities in your course that require assessment and feedback. But if students are going to modify their future behavior, they have to understand what they have done wrong in the present. So that's why we always advocate for faculty to give frequent and immediate feedback.
In an online environment, students find it very frustrating when they send an email or a message and they don't hear back from a professor for days or weeks. And so it's really important that they get that instant feedback, or as instant as possible, when they don't have the face-to-face possibility. I let my students know on the syllabus that I will get back to I will respond to their emails within 24 hours or their messages on Blackboard. And I always, if I don't have an answer right away for them, I let them know that I will find the answer for them and respond as soon as I possibly can. I think sometimes students have the expectation that a professor will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so a potential pitfall is that if a professor doesn't let a student know that they might not respond over a weekend or over a vacation or something like that, that the student can become frustrated easily.
In my courses and the courses that I help other folks design, I always advocate and practice myself a lot of small stakes assessments. For example, in my course, I assess every discussion post and I provide feedback on those that I find unacceptable, and I explain the reason why. And I have perhaps as many as 200 or 300 discussion posts that are required in a course that I teach. And so that's a lot of feedback. And once students, however, get through the initial couple of discussion forums and they see what kinds of mistakes they can make, they make them less and less frequent. So my job as the feedback provider gets easier as the course matures. I know that some instructors use an application which is like a clipboard, which saves responses so that they can be reused. They're like reusable responses. Other people just simply write their responses in Microsoft Word and then copy and paste them as appropriate. But you have to have some way of making your job efficient. an instructor is going to burn out if they're spending hours and hours and hours in every course they teach, providing feedback to students. I know for providing extensive feedback on important assignments is also important, but providing, quick and dirty feedback on repetitive assignments can also be equally productive, as it shapes the student's behavior to be more and more what you want. Instructors are good at reminding students that it's important to keep up. And so instructional designers are good at reminding instructors that it's important to keep up. If you fall behind or take a few days off, the quantity of work that you face can be a little bit depressing. So logging on and replying rapidly to students is important. I also recommend that in important discussions where feedback needs to be provided right away for mistakes, subscribe to the discussion forum so that almost your cell phone dings every time somebody puts a post in, and you can take a quick look at it and see if it needs any kind of a response.
Okay, so that is our video explaining the standard for this week. We're going to, there we go, talk about what actually the standard says and what is really those practices that we are talking about for this standard. And first, what we're really talking about is expectations. And we usually do that in the syllabus. We also do it in the course online. So we're really outlining what exactly needs to be there. So in that area, we need to make sure that there is a discussion area where students can ask questions, that they have the emails available to them to email you if they need private help, that we're improving over time and reducing the amount of time spent on repetitive tasks in the course, especially for learners. And the students have a general sense of that they know what they're supposed to be doing. For part 2 of this, it talks specifically about not only the expectations for instructor to learner, but also learner to learner interactions. And this is, we really focus in on net etiquette. We talk about what are the rules for group work, what is the peer assessment process, how do students get feedback to you, and then how do you provide feedback for that interaction. In part 3, we're specifically talking about the frequency and the protocol of which this communication happens between each of these parties. We're talking about response time, grading time, and the quality of interactions. And so this standard comes straight from the Department of Education's guidance on the amount of interaction that needs to be in a course in order not to be considered a correspondence course. So this is very specific to online courses. So what does that mean? It means there's a lot of practices actually tied up, but the good news is we do this almost on autopilot, right? Where a lot of this happens automatically. This isn't a lot of stuff that we have to add to the course already. So first really is setting expectations. We're setting expectations for regular and predictable teacher to learner and learner to learner interactions. So where do we do that? We set those expectations in the syllabus. If you use the syllabus template that's provided by the curriculum committee and also from EPDO, there's a whole section for expectations in there. This also means that you must provide a schedule. And about 100% of our courses do that. So we're doing this automatically, which is great. Something we're going to talk about is about a video in getting started that specifically addresses expectations in the course. So that may be something new, it's just a chance to reiterate what's in the syllabus and talk about all the different ways that students can connect with you and what they can expect from you in return. Also includes netiquette with consequences of what happens when the netiquette is broken. And it also includes discussion protocol, frequency, and consequences in your policies. So a lot of this is already done for us, which is good news. There's more actual practices. So we have 2 pages of practices this time. Also, it covers your contact policy. We also usually put this in our syllabus where you are communicating your grading turnaround time. You're communicating the frequency of the amount of announcements that you'll send each week. You are providing them with the how, why, when, and where of how to contact you. You're providing feedback frequency from grading and how to access that. You're providing an outline of what office hours are, when they occur, and why they're important. You're also outlining group communications and how learner to learner should communicate together. And you're also providing an ask a question discussion. You can also call this course questions and answers. As long as it, again, the nomenclature is within reasonable amount, you can call it really what you like. So let's talk about what that means. So let's talk about a video. So we talked about this video, having a video about expectations in your course. And so this could be syllabus or video. I highly recommend making a video as well. Students function on these videos. And if you're following Universal Design for Learning, this is part of that, where you provide the same information in multiple formats. So not only is it in the syllabus, it's also in a video. What you can include in the video is talk about how students to contact you, and most importantly, when. So usually when you're talking about in-person classes, students are often contact you after class or before class, right? There's a lot of activity about that. They really miss that online. So you really need to outline that 2 a.m. is not really a good time to contact me, right? You give them some hours, you tell them why and when, and you want to, again, outline when is it appropriate to post questions about the course in the ask a question discussion, and when is it appropriate to email me with private business, right? So you need to outline examples for them so they understand when they should be asking, posting to the discussion, and then when you're handling everything from email. This will reduce your course load, your email load, the time you spend on communications with students, because you will answer the question once in the ask a question, and all students can benefit from that answer. So you can avoid 20 emails asking about the same due date. You want to review all due dates that you will be traveling or unavailable. There's a lot of conferences that goes on. So sometimes you're not going to be there on certain days, or you're going to be away. You may still be, running your class from Ohio, but students should know that you're not around campus. You're not available by telephone on certain hours, right? So you want to inform them. You also want to tell them how long it's going to take you to turn around a post in the ask a question, or turn around an email to you as well. So office hours are really interesting. There's a lot of research out there that shows that office hours are named poorly. Students don't know what an office is. They've not all students, of course, I don't want to generalize, but the majority of students that are coming from high school haven't really been in offices or around offices. They only know when you go to the office, it's bad, right? So there's a lot of negative context around the word office. Think about how you can change that. I call my office hours boost sessions. And I talk about how if you come to the session, I'm going to give you a boost. I'm going to get you laughing. I'm going to happy, and I'm going to help you work out whatever's going on, right? So that's how I work with that. You want to talk about when their exams reviews happen, if you offer those. Whether you're doing a welcome and wrap up sessions, as well as any kind of midterm contact that you're having with them. I know there's instructors that meet once a semester during midtime with students, and they just have the students schedule when they're available, right? So that's okay. If you're contacting them, you're having a synchronous session, it's like a private office hour on their time, right? That's totally appropriate as well. They also don't know what happens during office hours. It's a big blank slate for them. So if you have office hours, tell them what's going to happen each week. So you want to explain, this week, I'm going to walk through the first problem set of the week. So make sure to join and we'll talk about how to approach the problems and how to make sure that you're on track, right? So you give them an idea of what's happening in office hours, and soon you'll have students actually showing up. You also want to set expectations for grading, feedback, and turnaround. Sometimes at the end of the semester and midterm, right, that turnaround time grows. So you want to make sure you inform them so you don't have a lot of students clicking on grades. Recently, I don't remember whose course it was, we looked and one of the students had checked over 1,000 times my grades already, looking for grades. And it was only like 5 or 6 weeks into the course, right? So there are some students that are high anxiety that are desperate to hear from you and know when the grade is coming in the feedback. So by managing their expectations, you're getting the best out of them and out of you, and you're managing the workload that communications really involves. And, you know, quite frankly, that's a lot of the course, is managing the communications with students. So let's talk about expectations for interactions. When you're interacting with students or student to student interactions, we're really talking about letting students know what the ask a question is, what's the protocol for it, and how fast you'll respond to them. The ask a question is really beneficial. I see something pop up in my email, I might get an alert. I can jump into the mobile app. I don't even have to log on to Blackboard. I just get on my phone. I get into the mobile app. I go right into the discussion and I can answer their question, right? So it's simple, really handy way to handle those questions. The second is you want to discuss your discussion protocol. You want to tell them how they're going to be graded. You want to provide them a rubric with examples that are both sufficient and non-sufficient. And you want to talk about the frequency of discussions and the frequency of posts and responses that you're expecting from them. You also want to talk about the quality, right? In the rubric, you want to talk about the quality of the responses that you're expecting. For small group protocol, you're really talking about rubrics. So if you're going to assess their participation in group work or their participation for the course in general, then you want to provide a protocol, rubrics, and a peer assessment. And most of you have used a peer assessment before. Again, just a peer assessment is where at the end of the group work, each individual person in the group work has the ability to respond to some questions about the group work that lets you know if there's been any problems or who deserves a lot of credit. Students are really ready to give praise to each other about the work they did. And they're also very ready to point out who didn't do the work. And then that allows you to scale the grading for the group accurately and fairly. And the resistance to group work will go away. Once they understand that you are a fair grader with group work, everything mostly works out. Sometimes you always have something going on, but the majority of group work works out. We also have to provide a netiquette, which is part of our discussion protocol. How do you expect them to behave with each other? I know nursing has a lot of expectations for how the students are working together. Also in a lot of the science courses. So you really want to explain to them, you know, what and how are you working together, and what is appropriate to be working together and what has to be done separately. You also want to really outline that feedback and frequency. Most students do not know that there's feedback in Blackboard. So even you spend all these hours giving them feedback, if you go in and look, only 8% of students actually check their feedback each week in Blackboard. So you need to scaffold this. You need to give them an assignment where you have them check feedback and then respond to you in some way, right? So that you're giving them, you know, how-tos to check your feedback. And then you're quizzing them, you're testing them to make sure that they're actually doing it, right? They're following through with that. A lot of us are doing this on, you know, on pilot. We already do a lot of this in the syllabus. It's just about extending it throughout the course and making sure it's in all places where it needs to be very apparent. So I have a couple examples. I pulled some examples for you about written course expectations, and I have some other examples to you to follow. And so I've just apologized for the highlight, but I wanted to make sure that you saw the important parts that refer back to regular and substantive interaction, right? So I am outlining the discussion protocol right away. I'm telling them what is expected, when things are due, and how many replies. I'm talking about the pace of the course. We talked about this a couple of standards ago. We talked about the pace of the course, setting the pace. Actually, last week we talked about this too. And letting students know how many hours they should be expecting to work, right? And how many hours there should be expected to divide, right? So if you want them to be working at least 3 hours on labs and lab homework, outline that for them. If you want them to take, 3 hours to write the paper, model that practice for them so they understand that you expect that work to be done. And it will help students sort of manage their time and understand how long it's going to take them to do the work. And as they get better at that, they'll manage it better as well. You want to outline how the interactions are going to take place in the course between both you and the students and students to students. So I'm telling them exactly what they're going to expect. They have a lot of assignments, homeworks, discussions, right? And I ask them about, being regular, being thoughtful, being respectful, right? So we're talking about that net etiquette again. And then again, I'm setting that pace for the week. So you can expect to see work between these hours, and then everything is due, with the exception of the Thursday morning post, which I talk is basically, that's part of that redundancy we talked about a couple of standards ago. I'm doing that redundancy practice where I'm talking about Thursday morning again, right? Because that's the oddball Thursday morning for this class. Call out to Kristen Swithers, who's probably here. I think I saw her. She has provided an excellent outline sketch for a net etiquette policy, which we use in EPDO, and she is gracefully allowed us all to use it. You can edit as you see fit. And you want to make sure that you also talk about on the board the consequences of when that protocol, the net etiquette, is broken, right? So not only are you telling them what to do, but you're telling them what those consequences are. I don't think there's really a lot of arguments going on with students. I'm sure it happens once in a great while, but overall, online students are pretty respectable to each other. So let's talk about contact policies and expectations. So again, think about making a video about how to contact you, right? It doesn't have to be long. It could be a minute or two, but it outlines, again, how they should go about it. And so you want to talk about what announcements are, how they're going to receive the announcements, and how often they're going to get them. You want to talk about how long it's going to take you to turn around your email time. You're going to talk about practicing those communications. And I have an example about how to practice communications in the first week. Again, the net etiquette and how you're going to structure feedback and frequency. So think about making that video, step by step, walking through these for students, because they can always go back and rewatch the video, right? And see where it is. We know that often they do not open the syllabus, right? That's one of the things research even shows, that since the syllabus is an attached file, they often don't open it because it's the phone. On the phone, they need software to open it, right? And often they don't have that software on their phone, so they can't open it, so they skip it. So think about using the video, because they can play a video on their phone about those policies. Here's an example about a contact heading. I highly recommend. It has all the information about your contact, your office hours. I know for part-time instructors, for adjuncts, that you don't have to schedule them, but it's a really great idea. Again, it goes back to a couple of weeks ago where we talked about consistency and redundancy, that you are planning it over and over. Actually, it's last week. I keep thinking it's weeks ago, but so last week we talked about that. Really using consistency and redundancy to your benefit, and making sure that students understand what's expected of them for contact and when. I also really encourage you to write a little bit. So here's an example of a bit of writing in the contact policy. Again, redundancy, back to the ask a question. I give them my turnaround time. And I also outline to them that personal issues should not go on to the ask a question. You should email me. And then I talk about office hours, right? The open to all offices. This is what we can do during them. It's really helpful for students to read a little bit about that, especially the office hours, because they really do not understand what office hours are for. So let's talk about some communication scaffolding. So how do you scaffold in your course all of these expectations, right? So you're scaffolding the content. We talked about scaffolding the technology. Now we're talking about scaffolding the management, your class management within that course. So the first thing you want to do, of course, as we talked about scaffolding before, is you want to orient and model in the syllabus and or video the appropriate behavior and expectations for students, right? So that's the contact, the contact video and the other videos. That's what you're going to do, right? You're going to model and orientate them. Then you're going to provide them practice, right? We usually say, practice as a group first, and then have them practice individually. So here's a great scaffold. First, we're going to have them practice first as a group. So you can have, have them post to the ask a question or the icebreaker. Most of us have an icebreaker, but I also recommend having them post to the ask a question the first week of class. Have them read the first chapter, and then have them ask a question about the first chapter and ask a question. The reason being is when students go in to ask a question and it's completely blank, they don't want to be the first person to show that they had to ask for help. So by having them go in and everyone's posting, you are normalizing the behavior of posting when asking questions. So everybody's equal in the course. Nobody has to sort of take the risk of being the first person to need help, right? So you're normalizing that. The same thing we're doing with the icebreaker. Everybody's responding to the icebreaker, so we're normalizing the behavior and expectations in the icebreaker. Then we want them to practice email. You want to set up an assignment in the first week where you have them actually walk through, use their email to email you. So now they have in their email, they have exactly know how to do it. You know that their software is working. They all are able to access their email, and you know that they have your email address, right? So you're normalizing the behavior of emailing you. So here's an example of how to scaffold, how to allow them to individually practice email, right? And this particular example scaffolds the first time for email, the first time for assignment, the first time for an attachment, and the first time for Word. So this first week assignment, I'm actually having them test out all of these tools. So I'm onboarding their practice for this. And I wanted to make sure everybody can see that. So maybe we can make sure, hopefully everybody can see that. I know it's a little small. So you can read that. So basically I'm telling them, I'm normalizing its behavior. I'm putting it into context. Remember how we talked about having meaningful headings? Week 1 is not the best, of course, but it's the email assignment. Then I'm normalizing here. I'm normalizing the use of it and telling them why it's important. And I'm putting it into context, right? I'm putting it into context. Then I'm outlining the assignment. What is the assignment they're going to do? They're going to fill out a questionnaire. And then what are they doing? Here's their task list. I'm preparing them to be able to use a task list. And in that task list, I'm introducing them to downloading from my Blackboard to their computer. I am having them opening up in Word, which means they have to have Microsoft Word installed. They complete the questionnaire, save the document. I'm having them log into their CCRI email. Oops, sorry about that. Log into their CCRI email. So I'm making sure that they have access and can use that. I'm having them create a message to me, so I know that they're using the right email. I'm having them attach to an email that document. So now I know they can attach things. I'm also giving them both how to title their email and how to address myself in that email, right? So I know a lot of us do that to make sure that because we have so many classes, you need to know that. So that's normalizing that email and the subject title. And then they sign with their full name, right? So, and they click send. So I have a lot of things buried in this, one of which is they're probably going to need support in links here. One to the help desk, which I've added, one to how to download Microsoft 365. They're going to have to, one to how to use Word, right? To just in case one of them has never used Word, it's probably a rarity, but it may occur. How to log in and out of your email. So I would give a lot of support links for this as well. And then at the bottom, I'm giving them expectation of Sunday by midnight. And then I'm giving them, again, a reference back, redundancy back to ask a question if they have any questions. Just remember, if you have a lot of students that are not emailing you back, right, this is going to help. If you scaffold the use of email into the first week or the second week of the course, then they all have access, right? So that they're not responding because they don't want to respond, because you've already onboarded them to email and that they know how to do it. Next example. So I'm trying to add some of these previous standards back into some of these examples too, so you get sort of a kit and caboodle, as they say. So here's a discussion post. Here's that descriptive heading where I'm telling them, please practice. I'm giving them context, right, for this, what I'm asking them to for the activity. I'm coaching that around why this is important, how it's going to help them, and what they have to do, right? So I'm asking them their task list. I'm giving them a task list step by step. So log into Blackboard, read your textbook. There may be more instructions in there, right? So how do you log into so you may be onboarding them for the textbook here, when you give them a little help, how to log in, go and how to post, right? So I've put that right above this box is the how to post. And then I'm having them create a thread and walk through that process for that task list. And then again, I'm restating redundancy. I'm putting that activity is due Sunday with a clear due date. So the expectations are very clear in this example for the protocol for the discussion. I highly recommend and ask a question. It'll really cut down on your email if you're vigilant in its use, because often you can give them a faster response time than sitting down at the computer and emailing, because you can function right off of your mobile phone. So we do have sometimes synchronous events as well, or check-ins in our course. They're all optional, or you're setting them on the student's time, right? So they've agreed to meet you at a certain time, and that's fine. And you want to coach your expectations around that as well. So, your net etiquette, if you have check-ins, you want to make sure you include synchronous events. I highly recommend periodic check-ins with students, giving them just that time face-to-face, once or twice a semester can help them really persist. They really get to know you. They bond with you. You get that community feeling. They start to trust you. A welcome session and a wrap-up session, highly recommend those. You make them optional attendance. People can watch the recordings, but you get a chance to welcome them, and you should spend the time doing an activity with them, right? Sometimes we just let's open the syllabus and jump in, right? Hold off on that. right? Take some time with them, do an icebreaker with them, do something fun about the subject of the course, right? Introduce them something interesting to pique their curiosity in that session, right? To get them really interested in the material and what the course is going to be all about. Because you're going to make a video on your syllabus anyways that they're going to watch later, right? So use that welcome session to your benefit and get them really passionate about the course. Wrap up session, give students time to give you feedback. Really important about setting that expectation. Students will invest in a course in which they have the ability to share what they think about the course design, allowing them to give feedback. Really hooks them. They invest in the course. It's empowering for their voice in the course. On-campus requirements, you also want to really outline those and set your expectations for those. Use synchronous events for midterm growth reports and reflections, right? You may have a synchronous event to just talk about how much everybody has grown, or talk about the projects that they're working on and how this is going to help them in the field and why it's important what they're doing. And of course, there's also Starfish, right? Where you're contacting them through Starfish. So you want to set your expectations. Every faculty member should be using Starfish. You don't opt out to it because the students are using it and Student Affairs is using it. So you're cutting yourself off from that communication that's happening if you're opting out of Starfish. So here's some resources for you. Again, I pulled some literature for you, and actually Ohio State has a really interesting communication plans for instructor that they recommend that it outlines a lot of interesting things that you can try in there and how they outline their policies. You can take a look at that. I want to remind everybody at November 9th again, 12 to 1, Why Oscar event for Rob Piorskowski. I'm sorry, I probably butchered that. Porskowski from SUNY Online. The webinar that he gets just 1 hour. We're going to record it, but we'd love to have you there. He's going to really talk about how they built Oscar, why they built it, and its impact at SUNY, and how it really became a national trend, right? This Oscar is not like QM. QM is an accreditation association, right? So Oscar is not. This is homegrown from the bottom, from instructional design, from faculty, from everyone working online has worked on Oscar for a really long time. It's a Creative Commons, so everyone can participate in its development. So make sure you take a look for and register for that event. Yeah, Quality Matters. Yes. QM. Thank you, Kristen.
And I use the Rice University calculator.
Okay.
Is that my only option? Is that the best option?
Yes. So I'm going to post this in there for everybody. I'm going to post this in a chat. So Rice University really took a lead in online. So they developed a workload calculator, and I highly recommend it for all review of your online course for what you're asking students to do. So in these 9 hours, when you look on the course Rice calculator, which I could probably share my screen with that. Oh, yep, there it is. So here's that Rice calculator. So here's our calculator. They break down the activities within a course, as you can see, assignments, writing, reading, course info, exams, to estimate your total workload for the class. And so it really is about you being very accurate, right? So if you're having them read a scientific journal, right, that's going to be dense. That's a lot of density. But if you're having them read poems, you might have less density, right? So you need to figure out, how many words are they really reading? how difficult is that reading, right? So if it's a science journal, right, that may be a lot. And what's the purpose? Are you having them engage and comprehend and then write something, or are you just having them read it and then they go on, right? So what is the purpose of it? Then it'll give you, so if I say pages per week, I'm giving them 25 pages of about 450 words. There are some new concepts and I want them to understand. It's going to give me how much that is. And that is 1.04 hours per week per class or per week. So then I could say, well, I want them to write a 1-page response of 500 words where they're giving me an argument with no drafting, right? So that's another 1.24 estimate, right? So that's giving me how much that is. So 3 hours per page, 24 pages per hour. And I can start to figure out what that estimated classwork, right? So maybe I have exams per semester. I have 12 chapter exams, and I want them to study 3 hours per exam, right? So that's going to give me the amount of money. So that's 3.64 hours now I'm giving of work. And then I might have other assignments. I'm giving them, maybe I want them to make them a PowerPoint, right? So I'm giving them 5 different PowerPoints, which they're going to spend 3 or 4 hours doing. Right now, I've done 4.64 hours per week, right? So now you can start to figure out how much are they doing each week in hours to make sure you are under the 9 or 12 hours per week, right? Unfortunately, there's nothing for labs. I don't think there's anything for labs. But I guess they fall under writing for lab reports, and then other assignments, maybe you could, and then reading and videos. I think they don't have a video reader either. Oh, actually, maybe they have the new one. I didn't even think to look at the new one. Oh, there we go. Oh, this was even better. So now we have discussion posts, exams, videos. So now you could really sort of manage to put this into your workload so that you can see how many hours they're doing per week. Now, the students who are telling you that it's too much work for them, there's something else going on, right? If you have 2 people, everybody else is good. You have 2 people, then it's time to talk to them more deeply about what's going on. If you have 2 people asking you, it's saying it's too much, and then 10 people dropped your course, right? Now it's time to take a look here to make sure you just, you're crossing, you're making sure that you are not over, right? You're giving too much work. You want to eliminate that from the possibility of the cause. Is there any questions? I know we don't have you do it in EPDO because it is quite complicated. It's more of an advanced, right? So now you have your course built. Now it's time, to start looking at how many actual hours you're asking them for work. It's a really great check. I'll put in I'll give you that link in the chat. Wait a minute, let me get out of here. Here's the chat of that new estimator, the updated estimators. I knew they had one for discussion posts. I was like, so that's the newest one for online courses. So you have more activities to choose from. And that's something like if you are, you're the sort of lead for a course, right? And you're making a course shell for accounting 1010. You're developing that course. You want to check that RICE calculator to make sure that you're not having them do too much per week.